Well, welcome to Remember the Ladies, a conversation and the world premiere of a new choral composition by Dr. Melissa Dunphy. I'm Scott Stevenson. I'm the president and CEO of the Museum of the American Revolution here at 3rd and Chestnut Streets in historic Philadelphia. I am just 2 blocks from Independence Hall. And we are so excited to be here tonight. I'm actually sitting in the Barbara and Ira Lippman Theater in the museum, right in the heart of the core exhibition of the Museum of the American Revolution. And of course, we're marking the final month of our award-winning and acclaimed exhibition, When Women Lost the Vote, A Revolutionary Story, 1776 to 1807. You've probably read about it in the national news. It's garnered several reports in the New York Times. It's been extensively covered. And the reason for us being here tonight, of course, is another object. Of course, I point that direction, 2 blocks is Independence Hall, but about 2 long strides in that direction, at least for someone who's 6'4" like me, is an amazing document. It's the original letter written between March 31st and April 5th of 1776 by Abigail Adams, the famous Remember the Ladies letter. And being in the presence of an object like this is so inspiring. We've been able to bring objects like this, which is a loan to us from our good friends at the Massachusetts Historical Society in Boston. By the way, the first time this letter has been back in Philadelphia since Abigail mailed it to John Adams in Boston in 1776. And all of our partners, our various lenders, public and private, have allowed us to bring together some incredible objects for this exhibition, which is sponsored by Bank of America and Comcast, NBC Universal, to whom we are most appreciative. Now, couple of housekeeping things before we really get into the meat of the evening. First of all, keep your eyes on the chat this evening. First of all, it's a great way for us to just sort of socialize together, tell us where you're tuning in from, say hello to people you know. We'll be dropping information in there. So if, for instance, you do not have the information about our panelists this evening, just check the chat and there'll be a link there. You can also download the sheet music for tonight's choral piece, and a little bit later when that piece that's been produced in partnership with PhilHarmonia premieres for the first time, please, if you're so inclined, sing along with it. It's really quite remarkable. Now, again, as I said earlier, the letter is here along with the whole When Women Lost the Vote exhibit for about a month, actually exactly a month from today, till April 25th. Of this year, 2021. We're currently open weekends, Fridays through Sundays. We'll be adding a Monday in soon. And so it's a great time to visit, very socially distanced, and hopefully you'll be able to see it in person. Now, thanks, of course, to our many friends from PhilHarmonia who helped us to produce this piece, and many of you have joined us for the program this evening. There are actually over 150 people from around the nation who are registered for the event tonight, and they're truly from around the nation. I want to share a few hometowns, and go ahead and say hello in the chat. If you hear your town called out, we have Holbrook, Massachusetts, and Hoboken, New Jersey. We have Clive, Iowa, and Scottsdale, Arizona. We have Centennial, Colorado, and Richland, Washington tonight. Both Tallahassee and Jupiter, Florida. I wish I was with you this evening. Lexington, Kentucky, a great revolutionary connected town in the great state of Kentucky. Hampton Cove in Alabama. Ackworth, Georgia. St. Paul, Minnesota. Waynesboro, Mississippi, and the ironically named city of Humble, Texas. Welcome to you all here tonight. We're so pleased to be with you. We're looking forward very soon to when we can actually gather together in the museum in person again. Of course, many of you on tonight, particularly from the kind of New York to Washington, D.C. area, are used to coming to the museum for these kinds of events. And I know we're all really eager to see one another in person again. But if there's a silver lining this year, it has been the vast expansion of our digital engagement and our ability to do these wonderful virtual programs that allow us to get together with friends who share passion for our mission and for the history of the American Revolution and gather together like tonight. Now, thank you to all who made donations. This was a pay-as-you-wish evening, which was an experiment for the museum. It's the first time we've tried this. It is one of our most successful programs yet. You have been incredibly generous. And of course, all of these funds go to support our on-site and online educational programming. We have at least 6 new households that are members that joined because they were so excited about the program this evening. And if anyone's tuned in tonight and you're thinking this might be something that's of interest to you, we'll drop a link in the chat, of course, if you're interested in exploring membership. Lots of great benefits, even if you live somewhere where you might not be able to physically visit the museum this year. We really have some great virtual programming, and you are supporting such a great cause here at the museum. Now, many folks who are with us now actually are part of our very new Launch Tonight Young Friends membership group. And that was a group that got together at 5:30 this evening for some online fun. We had using Mentimeter, which is a online platform. We had sort of a quizzo night all themed around Abigail Adams and the Remember the Ladies letter. And again, if you're interested in that, you'll be able to access some information in the chat if you'd like to find out more about becoming a young friend of the Museum of the American Revolution. At the end of this evening, we'll also give you a link to a Survey Monkey not quiz, but a Survey Monkey form where you can give us some feedback about this evening. Of course, this is absolutely critical as we shape our programming through the year. And if you have suggestions, for instance, about speakers or types of programs that you like or things that you loved about tonight, our programming team would love to hear from you, of course. And we'll also email you a follow-up with a recording of this evening's program. So this evening that we've shared together will live on, of course, as will the recording of this new choral piece, which will be available in the future for listening on the website. We're going to incorporate that into the audio tour that you take when you come to the museum. So this is just the beginning of a long life for this remarkable choral piece that you'll enjoy this evening. Now, finally, I'd like to introduce my good friend and colleague, Dr. Tyler Putman, who's our gallery interpretation manager. There's Tyler joining us from Gallery 15 in the museum. For those of you who are members or who are frequent visitors to the museum, you know, Tyler is the man of 1,000 disguises. You will see him dressed as an American privateer in 18th century costume aboard the ship. He is scuttering around the museum, leading a lot of the in-person programming, the living history program, costumed interpretation that we're doing. But the past week, I've been popping into our Liberty gallery on the top floor, our ballroom, where he has had 200 yards of red, white, blue, yellow bunting. This is a thinly woven woolen fabric used to make flags in the 18th century, cutting up about 15 flag kits that are going out to be sewn by women makers. We have I think about a dozen women who specialize in 18th century needlework, and you'll be hearing all about this soon. It's a special project called the True Colors Flag Project. You're hearing it for the first time this evening, by the way, that will begin on social media, but will culminate Flag Day weekend with us unveiling a whole suit of 18th century ship's colors, like those that would have been made by the 18th century artisans here in Philadelphia during the Revolutionary era. So very excited to introduce Tyler, who will really be the most important person you hear from next, and will introduce our panelists and be your host for the evening. So he, Dr. Melissa Dunphy, a good friend of ours, myself, we share a love of archaeology together, and you'll hear probably a little bit more about Melissa's remarkable interest, unlikely interest, actually, as an amateur archaeologist as well as an incredible composer. And so with no further ado, please join me in welcoming Dr. Tyler Putman.
Thank you, Scott, and thanks everyone for joining us. It's amazing to see almost 200 people visiting us in this webinar, and whether you visited us in person or you've discovered us online in this year we've just been through, we're just really delighted to have you. As Scott said, I'm here in the Museum of the American Revolution. I'm in front of our newest tableau, this life-size scene, part of When Women Lost the Vote, our current special exhibition, which shows you 3 women in the Rocky Hill Inn in 1801 outside Princeton, New Jersey, casting ballots in an election. And this was something that happened for over 30 years in early New Jersey, in revolutionary New Jersey. And it's only part of a story that we've been exploring in this exhibition that has just revealed all sorts of new details and angles about the history of people of color and of women in the revolutionary period. Stories that we're so excited to share in the museum, in our virtual programming, in our school programs, in our family programs, and tonight in a really unique collaboration. If you've been to our museum and you've thought about the Revolutionary War, choral music probably isn't something that immediately came to mind, but we have a really amazing history of working with artists to create interpretations of the revolution, with the ceramicist Michelle Erickson, for example, to recreate and create new pieces inspired by archaeological and 18th century ceramics. So this is part of a really amazing kind of thread we've been pulling to allow people who do amazing things in our city and elsewhere to be inspired by revolutionary stories and to continue the American Revolution into the present. So this evening, we're going to spend a few minutes talking to two of my friends, Gwen Freese and Dr. Melissa Dunphy. And then at about 6:55 or 7 o'clock, we're going to do the world premiere of Remember the Ladies, a new choral piece by Dr. Melissa Dunphy, recorded by our friends in PhilHarmonia, a really amazing Philadelphia choir. And then after the premiere, we'll bring some of our pals from PhilHarmonia out of the ether onto this stage, and we'll talk about what it was like to prepare and create choral music that normally would be sung together at the time of COVID. So I'm happy to be joined by Melissa and by Gwen. Gwen is up in Massachusetts. Melissa is actually just a few galleries away inside the museum in front of a pretty amazing object that I'll let her tell you about. But allow me to introduce them. Dr. Melissa Dunphy is a composer, an amateur archaeologist. She's an amazing podcaster. If you haven't discovered the Bog House podcast, a story that starts in real estate and ends up being a crime drama and then kind of turns into an archaeology study. Really just a great podcast by Matt and Melissa Dunphy. So hi, Melissa. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Hi, I am so happy to be here. This is like a dream come true that has felt like several months in the making, and now it's happening, and I'm so happy and excited.
Yeah, we're delighted to join you this evening. And Gwen Freese is the production editor at the Adams Papers at Massachusetts Historical Society. So Gwen has been helping us contextualize what Abigail Adams meant when she wrote some of the words we're going to be talking about tonight, how her mind changed over time, and has probably spent as much time with the words of the Adams family as anyone. So Gwen, thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you so much, Tyler. I'm so happy to be here.
So I thought we might just start with laying the groundwork about this incredible letter. So even if you haven't spent much time with revolutionary history or with women's history, you might know these three pivotal words. You've seen them on mugs and tote bags and t-shirts. Remember the ladies. And I wondered, Melissa, if you could just tell us what it feels like to be a few feet away from the letter that those words are contained in.
It's kind of wild. Full disclosure, I've been in this position before. I was lucky enough to be able to come into the museum a few months ago and commune with the letter as it was. I mean, this is part of my joy in archaeology, in the amateur archaeology that I've done, that I love history. I love reading documents. I love reading books and, learning about history that way through documents. But there's something really human and special about an object that was used by someone who has some kind of significance to you, whether they were a former owner of your property that you bought in Philadelphia, or whether they were someone who helped form our nation, whose name as this sort of, figure, almost an imaginary person. And then you see a piece of paper and you see the writing and you're imagining, her actually writing the letter. And it just really brings home the humanity of it all. And, it's just very visceral, emotional connection. So yeah, it's right back there. And I get to stand in front of it. Lucky me.
For me, that's one of the most amazing things about working in a museum. I love movies, I love reading books, but seeing a real thing that has somehow traveled 250 years through time and being, in its presence, I think it's just so amazing. And we're so lucky that we get to do that with 12-year-olds and 75-year-olds. We get to say, like, this thing was actually there. I wondered, Gwen, actually, you get to spend many of your days just immersed in papers that the Adams family actually created. So what's it like to kind of live with such an impressive documentary legacy as part of the editorial project?
It's phenomenal. It is so cool. You just wake up and knowing that you're going to go and be holding those letters and be part of that history. You know, Melissa's absolutely right. You can see like where they sharpen their pen, where they sharpen the quill, and you can see where they maybe took a break and maybe the kids were bothering them. So they stopped to go whatever problem they had, and then they came back. You can see the difference in the letter. It's cool to see the way it was folded. And you just kind of get secondhand euphoria when you see a letter and you know they've been waiting so long to get a letter from this person. And then you get to the next folder in the box and you say, there it is, they're answering, they got it. It is so cool. It is a real treasure.
So Gwen, help us set the stage. It's early 1776. We're lucky that this letter's back in Philadelphia. It probably hasn't been back since John Adams received it in the spring of 1776. But what do we know about the Adamses and kind of Abigail's frame of mind in those months that she's writing this letter?
These are tough times for the Adamses. Even though John and Abigail would spend a lot of time apart over their lives, this is really the first time it's happened in any extended way. He was a lawyer, he would ride the circuit court, so he would be gone, but she could see him on Sunday, or, you know, it was never more than 2 weeks. And suddenly she's going 9 months without seeing him. And John and Abigail function best together. And it's great for us when they're apart because we get this amazing correspondence and we get to really know them personally, but your heart is absolutely breaking for them. John is very frustrated. He is trying to get the Declaration of Independence through. There's a lot of roadblocks. Go watch 1776 and you can kind of get it in a nutshell. But Abigail is really, she is struggling. These are hard times for her because she is right on the front. I mean, the British are in Boston and she had to flee with her family out of their house in Boston. She doesn't know if their house is still standing or if it's been burned down. She and the kids in Braintree, which is now Quincy, Massachusetts. And suddenly she's a single mother, which she had never anticipated being. They have 4 little ones. They're all under the age of 10. The youngest is 4. And so suddenly she's in charge of all homeschooling. There's a smallpox epidemic, mumps are running rampant, and there's, you know, the British Army right there, and they can hear the cannon fire, they can smell the smoke. I mean, it's very real. And you can imagine how frustrating that would be for John receiving these letters and how real it is to him. And he's trying to convince the other people in the Congress to take this seriously because it's his family on the line. This letter is kind of a turning point because this is the letter where she tells John that the British have evacuated Boston. And so even though she's really struggling with all these other things, it's kind of a turning point. There's a little bit of hope for the first time. She writes about having a lightness of heart and the birds are singing. And also it's helped by, it's March 31st, which is about the time of year that we're all experiencing. The snow is melting, the flowers are starting to come up, just that natural feeling of spring and rebirth. She's kind of feeling all of that, but at the same time, it's like a cautious optimism because the British are gone, but are they really? Is it a trick? John's still not home. So she's kind of in that place where we all are, where there's a light at the end of the tunnel. We're not there yet. And we're thinking about what we're going to be returning to. So the question is, do we want a return to normalcy? Or do we want to use this drama and change things and maybe have a different kind of future?
I think that's so well put. I love that, imagining the gun smoke and the emotions that went into this letter. I feel like when you did an amazing job bringing us up to the writing the letter, and then it sort of leaves the Adamses' control, right? It's no longer Abigail's, it becomes all of ours. And now we've spent 250 years arguing over what did she mean. So I wonder, Melissa, could you tell us a little bit about the process of selection and interpretation, maybe kind of what sparked your own interest in this particular letter?
Yeah, absolutely. So I write a lot of political music, and I'm well known for setting words to music that don't immediately seem like song lyrics. So this was kind of right up my alley from the very beginning. I'm also, a proud feminist, and I'm very interested in women's issues, and particularly thinking about how women were reacting to the formation of America in the 18th century. It's something that we don't hear a lot about in our textbooks, of course, but here is a really concrete example of that. And then, I see in the chat, everybody is saying, I can't believe how relevant that this whole story is right now. And that was another one of the things about it that really struck me. Several things in the way she phrases things. She says, by the way, in the new code of laws, remember the ladies. And there was something about the way she sort of says, by the way, that made me think of my own experiences as a woman, where I felt like I had to be a little bit sideways about something that I felt really strongly about, just because I didn't want to rock the boat. Like, I felt that in her words. I can't know 100% for certain if that's what she was feeling, but that's the connection that I really, I wanted to sort of think about when I was setting those words. Another thing, of course, is there's a line where she says, I long to hear that you have declared an independency. And the way that I said that, I actually kind of chopped it up a little bit at one point and have the sopranos singing this line, I long to hear you, over the top of it, because I thought, yes, she's speaking very clearly about the independency of America, but she's also just longing to hear her husband and to hear his voice. And this is one of the things that it's really cool to do as a composer when you're setting words like this, is take the meanings that are in the words and then mine deeper meanings out of them through music. The other big one, of course, is the words remember the ladies. She means it to refer to, be aware of women as well when you're writing the laws of the land. But thinking about them in the 21st century, it's also a call to all of us to remember the women who also built our nation, and to continue to remember the women of the present as we go into the future. So that's what this piece is all about for me.
What better way to introduce the world premiere of Remember the Ladies, a new composition prepared by Dr. Melissa Dunphy, performed by PhilHarmonia. So without further ado, I'll draw all your full attentions to the screen, and we are going to premiere Remember the Ladies.
I have sometimes been ready to think that the passion for liberty cannot be equally strong in the breast of those who deprive the fellow creatures of them.
Wow, that destroyed me.
I was so
Incredible.
happy to see everyone in the chat reacting positively to it because, you know, one of the strangest things for musicians during COVID right now is that we can't perform in front of audiences. And it's so strange when we record stuff and put it out into the world and we can't see your faces and how you're reacting and whether it's reaching you or not. So actually, this was really good for me.
It's an incredible piece. And I wanted to just say what an honor it is to premiere it virtually or in person. And we're so excited down the road to welcome PhilHarmonia on site in the future for an on-site performance. So something to look forward to. And we're joined by some amazing collaborators on this project. Sara Brown is here, the executive director of PhilHarmonia. Mitos Hart is here, the artistic director, and Ryan LaRocque, the audio engineer. And these are really the masterminds behind figuring out how we could do this in a world where PhilHarmonia couldn't all sing together. So believe it or not, what everyone just heard was not a recording that we did at the museum or in a studio. It's individual singers from PhilHarmonia, I think in many cases recording in their bathroom, in their closets, that were stitched together to create this just heartrending rendition of this piece. So me too, Sara, Ryan, thank you for joining us. I wanted to maybe begin with an opportunity, maybe we can start with Melissa and then see what others have to say, but what was it like to work together and collaborate to create a piece in 2020 and 2021? What did we have to do differently than we would have in 2019 if we were making this amazing recording?
Oh, everything. Just everything. That's all. You know, one of the biggest tragedies at the beginning of COVID was there was a choir in Washington State who unfortunately many members of the choir were stricken with COVID very early on, and it became very clear that singing in an enclosed space with other people, which is how most choirs rehearse, is a potentially deadly activity during this time. This was devastating. I mean, really devastating for so many people who rely upon choirs, not only as a means of artistic expression, but as a community, because that's really what choral singing is. It's about creating a community. So I know a lot of choirs, couldn't rehearse at all. And what we're left with is this kind of virtual interaction, which we're kind of doing now via Zoom. But I'm going to throw it across to Sara and Mitos to talk about, Mitos particularly, let's throw it to you first to talk about, is it possible to rehearse a choir on Zoom?
No way. We tried so many times, and I second that, Melissa. PhilHarmonia is a chamber choir that comes together. We come together once a week from all different walks of life, and we all have our normal jobs, but we all love to sing and just make music and connect with each other, and then share what we work on with the Philadelphia community. So when this pandemic came along, I mean, it just sort of ripped out our souls in a way. And we tried everything to rehearse on Zoom, and it just wasn't happening. So, but we're so lucky that you asked us to be a part of this project.
Yeah, I knew, so, I cooked up this idea in a sort of fever dream of like, what if I set this piece of music for this exhibition and the museum could support it, and then I could rope in PhilHarmonia, and, came to Mitos and Sara and said, are you up for it? Is this something? I didn't know if this would be, something too much to be on your plate right now. I know everyone is dealing with so much with the pandemic, but I was pretty thrilled when you went for it.
I think one of the most amazing parts for me and for some of my colleagues, folks like Ryan Bott, who worked a lot on this project, Hannah Betcher, who really spearheaded it on our end, was when PhilHarmonia visited, we had the opportunity to welcome a few of the singers in to see the actual letter. And we thought it was just going to be, okay, come check out the letter. The museum is yours. Thank you so much for this collaboration. And we, some of our staff had kind of been wandering around, and then we heard this beautiful singing. And in a totally impromptu way, members of PhilHarmonia were singing the piece in front of the letter. And we talked about how moving it was to remember what it sounds like for people to be singing and laughing together in a space. And, that's not something I thought we would be hungry for, but you realize what an absence there is. And I don't know if you guys felt that way, but I just thought it was beautiful.
Well, I like the word hungry. We were all hungry to be together. Certainly, and when Melissa brought the music to the museum during our visit, we couldn't but start singing together.
And we haven't
With
seen each
masks
other
on.
in about a year. It's been a year since we've seen each other, so.
Yeah.
So what is this? I don't know, I guess I'm interested in exploring what these words meant to singers and composers, but were there things about the lyrics of this piece that either represented new challenges or that we unpacked in certain ways? And maybe we could start with our PhilHarmonia representatives and then see if their interpretation matched some of the intentions Melissa might have had.
Absolutely. I mean, I love Melissa and Gwen's, both of their interpretations. Just a very moving set to the piece. Yeah.
I remember when I first delivered the piece, Sara, you said you wrote back right away and said you could hear the patriotism in Abigail's words through the music. And I was like, I did it. So yeah, I was so like, I managed to pull this off, I think.
Melissa, can you tell us a little bit about text painting? That was a phrase I learned in some of our conversations, but how does that fit in with this piece? What does it mean?
Oh yeah, so people often sort of think that what we do as composers is some sort of weird genius magic or something, but it really isn't. I tell people, music is kind of a language, and there are, much in the same way as regular language operates, there's metaphors within music, right? It's like there are happy chords and there are sad chords, and music goes up, music goes down, music gets loud, music gets soft. And so you create all of these metaphors for emotions, for places, for situations with music. So, one of the things that I do a lot in my music is text painting, which basically means making the music illustrate what is going on in the text. So there is, and I think we might actually have some of the text available to throw up, some of the sheet music available to throw up on the screen. But there's a line in it where, here we go. Oh, let's go to like page, I think it's like a little further on. There's a part where the sopranos are like, we will not hold ourselves bound by any laws, right? And on the word hold, of course, I have the sopranos hold a high note, right? Because it's like literally they're holding themselves. And then sort of the next lines, bound by laws in which we have no voice. To me, it's like the way I'm setting it makes it really emphatic that this is what they mean. And, the words are almost bound, and that's how I'm sort of setting them out on the page. And then in the next line, she says, I mentioned this before we heard the video, but I long to see you. I gave the sopranos this very heartfelt kind of, lots of suspension.
My favorite part, actually.
Yay!
Yeah,
Yes.
that's seventh. If everyone can see in the score, at bar 68, the altos actually have the melody that the sopranos had before. And Melissa she's an expert when it comes to making text come to life. And she does this through word painting, but I think through a lot of other devices as well. But you see that long leap. Everyone try singing that. I long to hear, right?
Yeah.
That's like, like there's a place for us. Also,
That's right.
Sort of pining, longing. It just pulls on your heartstrings. And yeah, we will not hold ourselves bound. A lot of that. I just feel like even the way it starts at the very beginning on that unison E, I have sometimes, it just starts in a place where everyone can relate to. They feel like they're there with Abigail reflecting that these are the things that I've thought about, liberty, equality. And she takes us on this journey, a musical journey, in a way that we can totally understand and be right there with the speaker or the writer in this case.
I wanted to say real quick, like I did some research into what kind of music Abigail Adams might have been listening to back in the 1800s, not because I was going to write a pastiche of the music that she was listening to, but just to get inside of her head a little bit. And she was really into Scottish folk songs. Actually, it was that was her jam. She loved these like very peppy, but sentimental Scottish folk songs. And so even though my music doesn't sound like that, I feel like I saw someone in the comments said, it reminds me of a hymn. And there is something a little bit like that kind of not particularly grounded in the present or the past nature of how I tried to set these words, We'll see what happens going forward. I hope, well, I can't wait to see PhilHarmonia perform this live one day, right?
Yeah,
we can't wait either.
Yeah, and that Scottish music story is Gwen Freese, who was with us earlier, is sort of how we started talking with Gwen. And there's some amazing content on Massachusetts Historical Society's website. They've loaned us the letter, and they've kind of unpacked, and Gwen has explored what would have been on Abigail Adams's playlist. So it was kind of neat to see. Well, maybe this is a question: do you guys think Abigail Adams would like this piece of music? What would she think of what we've done together?
Oh, I really hope so.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, you can never really tell, right? But especially when I'm focusing on a single person, when I'm doing my research, I really do try very hard to empathize with them and get inside their head. She's not around to tell me I got it wrong, but fingers crossed, I did try to do her proud.
Well, great music, you remember the melodies, right? and we who have sung this, this melody has been in my head for months now.
It's a sticker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sarah, you
Yeah,
want
it
to tell
is-
them about
it's
your
gonna be
change
there.
of the lyrics?
I changed the lyrics in my head, so I've been, humming this again for, like Mitu said, for months, and I changed the lyrics from, what are they?
I desire that you remember.
Sorry that you would remember the ladies too. I require you to remember the ladies, and I've been singing it like that, and I had to sort of change back when we did the recording.
It's not a
That's
desire,
amazing.
it's a requirement. I love it.
Yeah.
We should also really shout out here though, the person who did probably more work than any other single person on this project, who is the audio editor, the hero of choirs everywhere.
And this
Yeah,
LaRocque
Ryan.
would not have been possible without you, Ryan.
Ryan, what's
Hello.
it like to take all these files and somehow make them into something we can all be so moved by? How does that happen?
So I get in my email or online, I'll download all the individual files and reassemble them into another program. There's differences between everybody's recording devices, so the timing isn't universal. So there has to be edits made throughout in every single file. So everybody gets lined up and made into one one file.
It's
One
astonishing
musical-
because it really does sound like they're in the same room. Like you did such a
Yeah.
great job of evening it out.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it was, PhilHarmonia was pretty easy to work with. I've worked with other choirs that took a lot more effort than this one. So everybody did a great job.
Ryan, is it a dangerous question to ask? This is about a 4-minute audio piece. How many hours of time goes into making 4 minutes of this?
I'd say about, I think I put about, I'd say roughly 40 hours into this to make it happen.
Wow. Well, on behalf of all of us, just thank you so much for all the work that went into this. I have found a newfound appreciation in the last year for people who are behind the scenes and without whom all of this is just totally impossible. So that's amazing to see the results of it.
Thanks. It was good. It was good fun.
So maybe for Mitos and Sara, what do you think is next for PhilHarmonia? Is this something that has opened new doors for you guys? Are you focused on different versions of reality? Where's the organization headed next?
Well, we always love doing collaborations and partnerships with, community organizations, museums, libraries, things like that. We've focused on, in the past, having a lot of concerts that are free of charge and in very accessible places. So places that you might even just walk through, like SEPTA or the Free Library. So we are hoping to start meeting in person again in September, of course, pending if it's safe or not. And then I think we're planning we're sort of planning to go back to our May concert 2019 that was canceled, or 2020 that was canceled. And it is a concert called Homebrewed, and it features Philadelphia composers. And hopefully it will still be at Cherry Street Pier. So again, accessible, free to the public. And we're hoping maybe October, November, but we really just want to dive back in. Everybody's itching to just get back into it. So
I'm realizing in our conversation, folks might actually not know too much about PhilHarmonia, but could you just tell us a little bit about all the different people who participate? I mean, this is not their jobs. What's PhilHarmonia like as a group?
no, PhilHarmonia, we have lawyers, doctors, teachers, software engineers, and we basically, we all have a love for music and all can read music and have a sort of education, a semi-education background in music. And we get together once a week, and it's a lot of fun. Again, we're not, most of us are not professional musicians, but really the important part about being in a choir and in a community choir is when you can, you know, stand side by side and listen to the people on either side of you, hear their tone, hear their inflection and what they're, you know, feeling and what they're doing, and kind of like generating that out into the group, and then into an audience. And it's a really special community, a communal feeling when you sing with a choir. It's unique, I think.
There are actually scientific studies that show that singing in a choir creates changes in your brain that make you more likely to be community minded. So, you know, I actually think the world would be a better place if more people sang in choirs. It's not like an idle kind of, you know, airy-fairy thing. It actually changes our brains and makes us more empathetic and makes us pay attention to the needs of others. We could all use
people talk about, you know, how you're when you're breathing together, your hearts start to sort of beat together. That, yeah, it's therapeutic.
It's us in harmony. I was going to say, members of PhilHarmonia, you can go ahead and put your day job, what you do, in the chat. But funny enough, I actually came on board a year after PhilHarmonia was founded, right, Sara? 2000. I came on in 2014. It was founded, what, 2013 or so? In the Black Sheep Pub is where it formed. Originally not a drinking choir, but just friends who loved. Yeah, and so I was lucky enough to come a year later, and I think the very first concert that I did with PhilHarmonia, we did one of Melissa Dunphy's pieces, and that was "What Do You Think I Fought For at Omaha Beach," which was on the words of Philip Spooner, who gave testimony, lifelong Republican, who was in support of gay marriage in Maine. And it was one of the hardest pieces we've ever done. And
this piece was not quite as hard.
And one of the most rewarding, honestly. And I knew right then and there, like, PhilHarmonia is a type of people that just want to make a positive change in our community. And as a result, actually, that's when Sara had a wonderful idea about commissioning the cantata that we commissioned from you, American Dreamers, which was based on text and poems by DACA recipients. And thus began our love affair with Melissa Dunphy's music. And then
it's totally mutual.
Allegiance. And then for our Philly homebrewed concert, we were working on Apotheosis of Apollo. So
it's one of my pieces. It's about the moon landing. So stay tuned. And when PhilHarmonia are able to be together again, I hope everyone who's listening in who can come to their concerts.
That's so exciting to look forward to. And I love this idea that what we share with PhilHarmonia, which I never would have thought about before this process and conversation, is this interest in empathy. You know, here at the museum, we imagine what life was like for people who are wildly different from us, right? Different time, different genders, races, ages. And we get to kind of put ourselves in their shoes and maybe make ourselves better contemporary people, right? To sort of flex our empathy muscles by imagining the experience of someone in the past. And I just think that's an amazing overlap. Melissa, what is next for you? We know what's coming up with PhilHarmonia, but what are you up to these days?
I am, it's a very strange feeling, actually. I am booked solid with commissions. I really am I knock on wood, I feel almost like I'm going to jinx myself saying this, but I've been getting I'm writing a lot of music for a lot of people. So probably my biggest project that I'm working on right now is an opera that was commissioned by Oberlin Conservatory. It's going to premiere in 2023. It's a really big project. And it is, surprise, surprise, an archaeology opera. Centered around the story of an actual real life woman who lived in the 19th century who died on my property, about a quarter mile north of where we are right now here at the museum. But the story is not told from her perspective. It is told from the perspective of 4 archaeologists who are excavating the property and discovering objects and learning bits and pieces of her story through the objects that they discover. So it's an archaeology opera.
Wow, I did not think
Disciplinary.
I did not think that that's so exciting. I cannot wait to see that. What a great thing to look forward to. And I just wanted to thank everyone who's joined us tonight. Again, we had 200 people here from all over the country. PhilHarmonia, Ryan LaRocque's amazing work editing this piece together. Great work from our inside staff. So many staff here at the Museum of the American Revolution contributed to this project, making sure we could get access to the building, projecting it out into the world. Many of them are lighting up the chat along with PhilHarmonia members. And of course, Melissa Dunphy, whose incredible words and music we've all gotten to enjoy tonight. At the museum, we have exciting things coming up. On April 7th, the anniversary of the wedding of a woman named Deborah Sampson, who you should definitely look up if you never have. We're doing an amazing collaboration with American Repertory Theater at Harvard, actually related to their production of 1776, which is coming up and will star an all-female and non-binary cast. So we're collaborating with them to do kind of a historical roundtable about Deborah Sampson's story. That's virtual online, so you're welcome to tune into that on April 7th. And of course, our exhibition, When Women Lost the Vote, is open for another month. So if you want to see that letter in person before it goes back to Massachusetts, it will be here. And so will, I don't know, about 500 other amazing objects, incredible stories. So please do join us online or in person. Thank you again to PhilHarmonia, Melissa Dunphy, Gwen Freese, the Massachusetts Historical Society. And before we go this evening, we did want to give you one last chance to hear Remember the Ladies, performed by PhilHarmonia, composed by Dr. Melissa Dunphy. Good night.
I have sometimes been ready to think that the passion for liberty cannot be equally strong in the breast of those who deprive the fellow creatures of them. take you the death and attention. These would be so dreams. We are determined to fall and to rebel. And will not hold ourselves by the laws in which we have no voice.